Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a little catch up here on where I'm at on the Jag. And I've been concentrating in a couple different areas. Last time I was talking about the trunk. This time I'm working on the steering. And I have an overall goal here, and that short-term goal is to get this thing so it's on the ground and steerable with the engine in it, engine and trans in it, and a few other items, key items, and then we're going to take it to a different location to have the strengthening structure. It's not a roll cage. The whole design is to strengthen the chassis. This is a street car. This is a street build. This is not a track car, hill climb, or anything like that. It's a street car. But I'm putting more power to it, a lot more power to it than it had. I'm putting a lot more brake, a lot more wheel and tire. And these things are known to move. They have scuttle shake. They have they will twist, especially without having a B pillar. So I'm going to do some structural changes. I need to get that done now before I get too much farther down the road, because it is such an intrusive thing. It's a series of bars and structure that we're adding, and what I don't want to do is go backwards. So I need to get that into place. So I'll show you what I'm doing on steering. So I think I've shown this before, and I've got the steering column back in place, and you can see Trent has fabricated the electric steering system onto this column, and we got a pretty good thing there. I don't know if you can see this, but right up here is the U-joint coming out, aiming towards the hole in the firewall there. Okay, so I've got the front suspension back in place, and I've got the steering rack in place with new mounts. And this is a manual rack. This is not the original rack. And you can see we've got just a lot less mass here on a stock Jag. The power steering big mass comes all the way up here. So the next step is we've got a U-joint that'll go here. And so we've got to make it into this hole at the right angle. Now the problem is, if I go with one piece, my angle's got to be off. So this is a D slot in the top of this. All right, so now we're getting pretty close here. You kind of see heading to the right direction. Now at this point, I am adding a third U-joint. We're going to have this one at the rack, this one midpoint, and there'll be one inside, the one that was just dangling off the bottom of the steering column. So this is too close to this penetration, so I'll shorten this shaft. I want this to end about right here, and then I'll have shaft, 3/4 inch shaft again, that will penetrate through here and into that third U-joint. Now, 2 U-joints you can get away with. Once you add a third, you add another pivot point, and it'll essentially can flop. So you've got to add a support structure. So what we did here, all right, so I've got this, and Trent made this for me, and it's just a very simple bearing that can rotate, or bushing, and if you can kind of get a sense of what that is. So he's made this so that it'll mount right up here, actually on the inside, but right up to this hole. So essentially this shaft will pass through this, mounted, fixed into the firewall structure here. Now this will be on the inside. This will act as a stabilizing point because I've got the three U-joints. So what we've got left to do is to shorten this one and remachine the D slot into this, so it enters into that joint, and then cut another piece of shaft that will tie in through the hole here and into this U-joint. And I don't know what's that, it's going to be about 6 inches or so. And that should give us the steering. I think we'll have it. Yeah, done. And there's no, other than the wiring for the electric motor, there's no plumbing or anything else. So, mechanically, it'll be done. We're getting that accomplished, so now it can sit on its wheels, it can roll, it can steer. Other than putting in a few other components, that should work. That should be it. We can go over and get the safety tubes. Safety tubes, not the right word. Enforcing structure, whatever you want to call it. So, okay, let me show you what else I have done. All right, so this is the rear seat area. I have removed the entire panel between the cab and the boot space. Obviously I'm not running a rear seat here. I'm doing some other things. The air conditioning is going to be at the rear, in that trunk, in that space right there. So I'm going to completely redo that structure between those two spaces to accommodate the airflow for the AC as well as battery pass-throughs, because the ECU power distribution is going to be down here, which I haven't modified yet. Power distribution, so all the wiring to the car is going to be coming right down into this area, terminating in there, and the battery will be right there, so there'll be a pass-through through that wall down into the PDU and a few other air suspension, trying to think what else would pass through that. But anyway, I'm designing that, and I'll lay that out, and I'll cut that in the plasma when I've got it sorted. This is a generic AC box, and I don't know how I feel about it. I may end up fabricating one out of sheet metal that suits the space a little bit more. It's actually a pretty simple concept. I mean, it's just an evaporator core and a fan. So it's not like there's a lot going on there. This is one I bought. There's just universal one out on the market, but I think I'm going to end up just making one. All right. So back to this panel. Also, the safety structure, the tube reinforcing structure is all going to go in this area, forward here, up and over, and down into the engine compartment on each side. So it will also pass through this area from the cab to tie into the structure above the rear suspension. So back up in this area here on either side. So I'm going to leave that panel out for now, and we'll put that, the structure will get put in there. That way I can make the panel around it, and they're not having to fight cutting holes in that, in that thing to run tubes through. So, yeah, that's where we're at on that. Other things I need to do before it goes out for that is the heater box is going to go up here, and that piece of cardboard template I've been playing with is roughly the shape of the heater box. I'm going to, I need to mount that. All this kind of needs to be in place because of, there's going to be some tube structure going across the top, not inside, I don't think, but possibly, but certainly across on the back, and where everything's mounted, and it becomes relevant. And also things like that, we're going to try and run a structure across here to tie the front all the way around, so it comes around and these two sides are tied together with structure. And things like over there in that corner where that plastic bag is, that's where the wiper motor goes. So you got to be careful, in doing this, putting significant structure into something that you don't write yourself right out of the ability to install some of the basic already existing functions, i.e. just digging yourself a hole. in that regard, I'm going to try and get all the relevant bits in place before we do that structure. And I think probably the last one, and I've been kind of waiting on this, is the seats. I've made my structure here, and I just need to finalize where the seats go in here. I've got the new cross member. This is not welded in, and I got a couple more pieces to make for that. So it could be that the seats are probably the last one to go in. One other thing that's been slightly interesting is the coils. So I made this, and when we originally built this motor and put it on the dyno, we used, it's a complete Haltech system. We're going to use the Haltech PDU to control this in the whole car, and including the engine. Ended up using these Haltech coils. I think these are 1 generation old because, you know, it takes a while to do projects. But I still like them. They're a very capable coil. Issue with this engine is that it's inside plug V12, so down in that valley, it gets a little bit busy. You know, back on all the cars that ran a distributor, the distributor was in the middle of the engine in that valley with a big distribution cap on the distributor, trying to get to 12 spark plugs, all within, you know, a very tight, narrow space. I was always just very busy down in there. I want to keep that area open because also it's a heat trap. There's a lot of heat down in that valley. Obviously, it's the middle of the motor, and anything that's running in there is susceptible to that. So I want to keep it open so I can keep airflow going. I considered doing coil on plug, which is viable. I mean, it's really no difference in what we're doing now. I've got 12 of these, one to fire every plug, which we can do with the Haltech system. We can sequentially fire V12, and so I don't know. At this point, I'm going to mount these coils in the cab and go through the firewall and just distribute right into that valley, as opposed to putting coil on plug in that valley. We're doing some things with different intakes, and you know, we did pretty damn well on the dyno, but we've got headers now. We had before we were on the dyno initially. We had log exhaust manifolds. Now we got headers, and we're making some changes on the intake manifold to really improve the airflow. And I think that's going to push us. Hoping, I think about 410 and maybe 400 foot-pound. So, you know, we'll see. Anyway, so I want to keep that valley clean, and so I'm trying to mount the coils inside, and that's what I made this for. So I can mount these coils like this, and they're a little bit, you know, like this, and then I'll stack them 2 deep, so that, you know, it works. And then I'll mount this inside on the firewall, probably, yeah, well, not probably, in the passenger footwell. I'll show you where that's gonna go. So, right up in here, and this is where these coils will hang, right up in there. So, obviously going to lose a little bit of foot space, and then wires will wrap up through here, exit into the engine compartment, right into the V. So it's actually not as far away as it might look, or it might seem, I guess. It's not very far. So we're not really beyond the limits of the spark plug wires or anything like that. So anyway, so on this V12 here, so this thing is still set up. We originally ran it on the dyno. I've got the engine hoist on here because we've had this motor in here 20 times. You can see down in here that, you know, it's pretty tight. Here are the injectors, and the spark plugs are way way down in there. So, you know, coil on plug might work. But I really like these coils, and I like the idea of keeping this open in here to get airflow. So at this point, these are coming off. So these are the Jaguar plenums, and so we're going to remove these and make our own air inlet plenum on each side. We've got some ideas on design for that. So that's really going to open up the top of this engine. I mean, if you look at these motors, they're pretty cluttered on top with that inlet and the injection rail. I don't know. You know, what we're doing will open it up a little bit. Certainly look different, but it'll also we've got some ideas on what this is going to do performance-wise and torque-wise that is going to be a benefit. So, on to that. I've gotten some cool things in, and this I've got from some Wizard radiators. I've got a giant aluminum radiator. All right, and this has got the two inlets on either side with a built-in shroud and cooling fans. This thing is a little bit heavy, but I can guarantee you it is a whole lot less heavy than the original one. So you can convert these to a single inlet, but the way these engines are designed, you have on either extreme of the engine, you've got water outlets that head straight for the radiator either side. You can convert them into one, and I've seen arguments that that's a more efficient radiator, but in this case, the aluminum one, I can't imagine I'm going to have an issue. And I like the cleanliness of the hoses going straight off the engine into the radiator and not having to cross over and have a big hose or fixed pipe or something there. So next, I've been playing with the idea on the air inlets, and you can see on my rendering here on the front, so I've got air inlets on my secondary inner headlights. My original thought on that was that I don't need that. I've got the outside, the bigger headlights. I'm converting to the larger UK headlights, and I got high and low beam. I don't really have an issue there. I don't need those inside lights. One, I could turn them into fog lights, or two, I can use them for an additional air inlet, which I thought kind of looked cool. Problem is they're kind of right behind the radiator. I've got to get it all together here to see how much space there is and if it's actually realistic to try and harvest that for air inlet. So we'll see. But I ordered these just off of eBay, and they're hideous. They're just anodized green. They're aluminum. But I kind of like that big fat rolled edge. They were really inexpensive. So, you know, it's kind of a matter of what that shape would look like in that headlight, with that big rolled edge. Because my original design was something that didn't really have that big rolled edge. So, I don't know. It was cheap, and we'll see, you know, I got to get the bonnet down off the shelf and on the car and put that in there and see if I like that shape. We might go with something in that direction. Okay, put these coils back. I have gotten some other cool stuff in, been working on, or, well, getting ready to work on. We're getting all the air conditioning equipment. So for the AC system, the rear AC system, the receiver dryer. I got to work out hard lines. I haven't ordered material for making hard lines yet from front to rear. And then I got to order a condenser. As soon as I get the radiator mounted, mocked up in there and mounted, I'll order a condenser that I can fab into place based on the available space there. I got these in as an idea for the pass-through on the panel between the boot and the cabin is air pass-throughs. So I got 2 of these on either side, you know, with the panel in the middle, that tube, air tubes, big and little, for inlet outlet into the system, can pass through. And pass-throughs for power. So the battery is on the boot side, and the PDU is going to be on the cab side. So I don't want cables just passing through the metal. So here is a bulkhead. I've got 2 of these bulkhead power pass-throughs for that panel as well. I got another one here. This is all vintage air stuff. This is a bulkhead panel pass-through for the AC line. So the plan is to go from the evaporator in the boot through into the cabin, down through the floor, and then underneath the car to the engine compartment up to the compressor. So this is a set of pass-throughs that will be both in the bulkhead panel between the boot and the cabin, and also that and down into the floor, under the floor, and forward. I'm not 100% committed to running those lines under the car versus through the car and inside. Still working on that. I'd probably go under. I mean, they're more open to damage that way. It's not like I'm doing hill climbs with this thing. So, but it is, you know, as a car goes, it is low. It's going to be low. So, you know, it's got to be careful what you got, you know, hanging down there. I've got the air compressor. This is all from Ridetech for the suspension system, and the distribution block for the air suspension. So there's an up and a down for each position. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 positions. Pretty simple. I'm not doing anything crazy with the air suspension. I just want probably 3 different selectable ride heights and call it good. So I got these in, and I just ordered these off of eBay, and this is stuff to integrate into the dash, and this is kind of cool. So if you can imagine this flush into the dash like this, you know, okay, like that. And you get this cool cup holder. So, yeah. And this is out of, I think this is out of a Saab, like a 9.3 or something. But that's all you see is this little presentation like that, and you know, push the button and you get a cup holder. It's a little fragile looking, but it's actually well made. The other one, I don't know what the hell this is out of. Probably I think it was an Acura or something. But all this I wanted out of this is that latch and slow release, hydraulic-like release. You know, pretty standard hidden panel kind of stuff in a modern car. And all I wanted was how this works. It's a really simple mechanism, spring-loaded. But until you see it, you know, it's easier to engineer when you got one there. So I'll either use elements of this. I might just harvest all this stuff off of it because I'm going to have a hidden panel where the switches are going to be behind. So I got that in, and that was pretty cool. Okay, so all right, here we go. I got the, let's put the compressor back. I got the front heater in. So heater's going to be, so heater in the front, AC in the rear. I know that's a little compromised, but it's actually not as bad as it looks, you know, would think. And this is the heater. Pretty small. I don't know if you can see it through the plastic here, but I got a heater core and a blower, and I will also have the one of the blowers, fresh air inlet blower from the passenger side that will drive through this as well. So, you know, the cabin space obviously is the same. Anyway, so I got that in. As far as this whole AC heat thing, the cabin space obviously is the same. I'm not, you know, there's only going to be 2 passengers. There's not going to be a rear seat. This is going to be a 2-person car now. So I don't know if that means there's less load. Probably not. I mean, I think, you know, a BTU capacity is mostly calculated on the space and the exposure to the environment. But here's the stock one that goes up underneath the dash. And this is a Series 2. And the Series 1 actually worked better than these. These I would probably call one of the more difficult parts of these Jags. Yeah. So reasonably compact. There is both an evaporator and a heater core in here. But when you actually look at them size-wise, the heater core and the evaporator are no bigger than what I've selected in individual pieces. I would argue that with capability of modern compressor, a better condenser and cooling fan up front, that I actually have a better system as far as capacity than the original Jaguar unit did. Also, Jaguar was trying to automate, well, I say trying, or somewhat successful. They were trying to automate it. So it was the early, so this is 76, so they were in the early stages of technology-wise trying to make automated or automatic heat control. So in a modern car, you know, you select the temperature. It's the normal now. You just select the temperature and it does everything else. On this one, you could select fan speed and temperature, and it would try to make decisions based on that input. Modern cars have multiple sensors, and it's all done via computer. The computer will look at the conditions in modern cars, including humidity, and will make decisions of whether to turn the heater on and which ducts to open to where, whether or not to combine that with AC or just AC or whatever. And it does all that. These systems out of the 70s were that was the goal. I mean, they were trying to make it automated. You could select a temperature and select a fan position output, and they worked sorta. And it was a combination of electric switches and vacuum motors or vacuum actuators. And it's not just Jaguar. I mean, this is very typical of that era where they were trying to make things automated, really without the benefit of the technology that we have now, which is basically just a computer takes all the inputs and makes decisions on very accurate electric actuators, stepper-like actuators. They can very acutely set the position of any one damper. So these things were compromised. They had issues, and they were complex enough mechanically and vacuum and electric that if something went wrong, and it does, they're hard to diagnose, and they're difficult to work on. Now, doable, perfectly doable. I'm not arguing that. I mean, it's just a matter of being a good technician to jump into something and make it work. But one, I didn't want anything under the dash. I don't want that with all the vacuum tubes and electric switches and all that kind of stuff. I am going for a much more electronic controlled environment. So that's why I abandoned the original one. I had originally set out, I was just going to rebuild it with electronic actuators that I could control from the Haltech PDU. But I quickly gave up on that because I was going to end up in a pretty compromised place, whereas this, doing it this way, I've got control over what I want. All right, so that's the catch up on the Jag so far. We'll see how much fabrication I get done this week amongst doing business. Always interesting. And we'll see what we get done, and we'll see you next time.